In 1857, a 3-year-old boy waited to have his photograph taken, fascinated by the scene before him. The smell of chemicals filled the air. A stranger told a woman not to move, and made sure she didn't.
Some photographers were very adept and artful in their putting the sitter at ease. Others had no idea about the art of that and just plunked people down. You were told to hold still and how long the exposure would take, which may be anywhere from 3 to 6 or 8 seconds. And the moment of the shutter or the cap being removed, all right now, I'm ready, hold still, assume a pleasant expression, here we go. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Usually during that time your mind is going, and keeping from moving during the act of thinking different thoughts was a challenge to the sitter.
Finally, it was the boy's turn. Strapped into the chair so he couldn't move, he stared suspiciously. His name was George Eastman. 30 years later, he would make a camera so simple that every man, woman, and child could use it. First, he had to overcome fierce competition and embarrassing failures as he struggled to make photography easy and affordable for everyone. In the process, he forever changed the way people see their world. In 1877, George Eastman, a 23-year-old junior bookkeeper, walked into a photo supply store in Rochester, New York. He was looking for a camera to take pictures of land he wanted to buy.
As he worked at the bank, he realized that many of the wealthy depositors in the bank were all involved with real estate in one way, shape, or form. And so I think he decided that getting into some real estate deals himself might be a way to make some more money.
Eastman had never taken a picture before, and the new camera proved harder to use than he expected.
I could do nothing with my first outfit until after I'd paid a professional photographer $5 to give me lessons. The bulk of the paraphernalia worried me. A camera about the size of a soapbox, a tripod which was strong and heavy enough to support a bungalow, a big plate holder, a dark tent, a nitrate bath, and a container for water.
To take a single picture, photographers had to pour layers of chemicals over a glass plate, forming a light-sensitive emulsion. Because the picture had to be taken before the emulsion dried, the process was called wet plate photography. Despite the cumbersome process, early photographers managed to travel throughout the world and return with exquisite photographs. In Rochester, George Eastman struggled to take a picture of the Genesee River. But carrying those chemicals was messy, and they were hard to use. He felt there had to be a better way. Each evening, he spent hours studying international photojournals. He discovered that British photographers were experimenting with dry plates, pre-coated so the chemicals could be left at home. Eastman had stumbled onto something that few Americans knew about.
The standard photographers are not as informed of the British journals and so on, and they are well wedded to the old way of doing photography. But here's this young novice having trouble, struggling with the technology, and here's this new technology, and it just draws him, and he says, why not try this?
Eastman was determined to make his own dry plates, even though he was a school dropout who had never studied chemistry. George Eastman was born in 1854 in Waterville, a small village in eastern New York. He was the youngest of 3 children and the only boy born to Maria Kilbourne and George Washington Eastman. George's father ran 2 successful businesses. In Waterville, his nursery sold roses and fruit trees. Each week, he commuted 130 miles west to Rochester, New York, where he opened a business school. He taught bookkeeping and penmanship. When George was 3 years old, his father's health failed. He sold the Waterville farm and moved the family to Rochester. In May of 1862, when George was 7, his father died. Maria discovered her husband had left no money.
Mr. Eastman's father should have been very successful in the business school, but after he died, there was nothing left, and it was a great shock to Maria that she had not been provided for, and no one really knows where that income went.
George watched his mother struggle to support her family by taking in boarders, scrubbing and cooking for strangers.
I think that when you grow up in an environment where you have a mother and father and you live in a very comfortable home and you go to a private school and you have basically all you need, and then all of a sudden that is sort of taken away from you kind of quickly, kind of suddenly, without any preparation, it probably gives you that inborn fear of wanting to make sure you always are prepared, always have thought things through, that nothing is a surprise like that again.
With his mother busy taking care of boarders, George often played alone. But he was handy and made puzzles and toys to amuse himself.
He went to Sunday school with one of these little trinkets and was playing with it during the sermon, and one of the other young boys at the church liked it and wanted it. And he told him he wouldn't part with it at first, and he stopped the conversation, and then he realized, well, he could make another one, and he could sell it and make some money.
Making money gave young Eastman a sense of importance. In 1868, at age 14, he quit school and took a job as an office boy. He tracked every dollar he earned and spent in meticulous ledgers. He became a bit of a dandy. He bought fine clothes, took dancing lessons, and attended lectures. In 1875, Eastman became junior bookkeeper at the Rochester Savings Bank. But he wanted more. He began acquiring real estate. These investments launched a casual interest in photography, an interest that soon became an obsession. In his mother's kitchen, he struggled to make dry plates like the ones he had read about. After working all day at the bank, he stayed up late each night, stirring chemicals, pouring them onto glass plates, and baking them in the oven. Many mornings, his mother found him asleep on the floor. He tested his plates by taking pictures of the house across the street. A local photographer saw these pictures, bought the plates, and recommended them to the Anthony Company, a leading photo supply store in New York City.
Anthony is a company that's in the business of marketing on a national level and distributing on a national level. It is on the lookout for people like Eastman, people who look promising, who have promising products in the photography business. So I suppose you could say from Eastman's point of view, it's a break. He's a young guy. He's just getting started in this stuff. It's a break for him to get a contract with Anthony.
With the Anthony Company behind him, Eastman opened a dry plate factory in downtown Rochester in January of 1881. He was 26 years old. Instead of president, he chose to be treasurer of his company so he could keep a close eye on the ledgers.
The treasurer was the person who handled the finances, was in control of financial decisions and the actual carrying out of the financial operations. And to him, that was the most important part of the company.
Each morning at 8 o'clock, Eastman rode his bicycle to his day job at the bank. At 3 o'clock, he hurried to his factory. He made all the emulsions himself, mixing and stirring late into the night. Every morning he returned to the bank, his fingers stained black from the chemicals. "I'm going to succeed," he vowed. Eastman was up for a promotion at the bank. When the job was given to a relative of one of the bank's directors, he was outraged and quit immediately.
One of the bank officials commented when Eastman quit his job that what a foolish thing to do to pursue this will-o'-the-wisp when he had this wonderful career as a banker ahead of him.
By now, he had 6 employees and was selling $4,000 of dry plates every month. Professional photographers gladly abandoned their wet plates in favor of this new, easier method. But as the market increased for dry plates, so did the competition. Self-taught as a chemist, Eastman couldn't match the new improved emulsions that other companies were now offering. He hired Henry Reichenbach, a science student at the University of Rochester.
We have a young chemist who devotes his time entirely to experiments, and we hope he will strike the right emulsion sooner or later. He knows nothing about photography, which is all the better.